as Ed mentioned, well, maybe he didn't mention, we have 11 locations. I work with 22 physicians, and those physicians can be challenging at times. They're very potentially high maintenance, obviously high energy, highly educated, and very demanding. And if you've ever heard the old adage, being a practice administrator is like herding cats, well, I herd cats. Deborah Singleton and Brady Holcomb asked me to talk today, and when they asked me, I wasn't quite sure why. And actually, after reflecting on that and looking at the whole process from beginning to end and continuation, I really see that there was a success story in the sales process, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. And I will be brief. That's the good news. I know it's Friday, it's late. The bad news is Mr. Bravo broke his leg when he left, and we're probably going to have to take him to Pinnacle. So anyway, as I speak, I want you to think of 3 points or 3 characteristics, and really this reflects the sales process. And one is persistence, the second is knowledge, and the third is follow-up. And as I tell my brief story, I think all those characteristics were met from a sales perspective. Persistence, obviously, as an administrator, my time is limited. I do acknowledge persistence and assertiveness, and there's a fine line between that and aggressiveness. And I think you guys need to know that and know where that line is, because that's critical. But from a persistence standpoint, any salesperson needs to have that. From a knowledge standpoint, obviously you need to know your product. You need to know it in and out. But you also need to know your competition. And sometimes it's easy to find that information, sometimes it's not. But really the third one is to know my business, or try to understand my business. So it's good you have the first two, you know your business, the competition, but also try to understand my business. And I think that's what the account reps here did. And they tried to solve my problems, find out my problems, and figure out a solution for that. And the third, follow-up at all levels of the sales process, from the introduction stage through the process, at closure. And then I think a lot of times where people fault is after the close. Is there any follow-up after the close? And a lot of it's about relationship building and continuing those relationships. We're in a service industry in orthopedics and healthcare. You guys are in a service industry, so it's what's your name. It's that extra value added that you can bring to me as a customer and everybody else. So with that, there are interrelationships developed on the outside with me as a customer, but also internally. And BellSouth, like every other organization, is a value chain, and it's made up of various departments. You get your sales department, your HR, procurement, technology. And I think it's critical to understand that those departments within, as well as outside, are not dependent of one another. They are interlinked. And when I tell you about my story here, it's critical because the sales rep understood and had the contacts at the different levels inside the value chain of BellSouth to solve my needs and to get the problems resolved. So my story begins. CLEC, you guys know what that is? Is it a CLEC? Is it a CLEC? Well, at any rate, we had our service with a CLEC, 11 locations. Price originally dictated it. Hey, we're going to save some money. We later found that value was missing, and that extra value. So we had a problem. We were moving our central business office, the hub and guts of our organization, from one location to another. And I was just not getting resolved from our CLEC representative. And push came to shove. I had to go to the top, and I had to go to somebody that was knowledgeable. So we got BellSouth on the phone. The account rep, in this case, was available 6 o'clock in the evening and literally stayed on the phone with us for an hour and a half explaining to the CLEC rep what to do. And that's that value-added customer service. And it was very evident the CLEC rep just wasn't, well, a couple sandwiches short of a picnic. They weren't playing with the full thing. So there was a gross failure on the CLEC's part to really get the job done. And you know, time is money, knowledge is money, but when you're dealing with scheduling and everything else, it's critical from our patient flow that we have systems up and answers resolved. So at any rate, we got Brady Holcomb on the line. He was with us after hours, numerous occasions, and this was just the beginning of the whole process. And it was amazing, and it was very evident to me that we had made the wrong choice in the CLEC. The next morning, I didn't get a call from any of the CLEC reps. I did get a call from the BellSouth rep, Brady, which I found to be, I was pleasantly delighted that he made that call. At that point, I was switching the service back to BellSouth, and again, the value added for that, the value added of my rep knowing the system, knowing my business, and following through, following up, just a little thing like that. There were some bumps in the road. There were some facility problems, and quite frankly, the facility problems escalated pretty high. There were times where, I mean, we talk about after hours, I don't know, there's Brady, but he was getting numerous calls from me and my 22 cats that I was trying to herd. And there were a lot of times that he could have thrown in the towel, and he didn't. And we got the problem solved, but he went through that value chain of the organization to technology, and he built the relationships there, and over in service and built the relationships there. So it's critical internally in your value chain to build those relationships as he did with our organization. It was really at that point where our relationship changed, and it changed from Pinnacle and BellSouth to Pinnacle and Brady Holcomb. And you know, I'm using Brady's name, but that's where he could have thrown in that towel. And I'm telling you guys, don't do it. Be persistent, keep the knowledge base, and always follow up. And it's a lot easier to walk away, and I think a lot of other CLEC companies or whatnot would have. But you have the big guns behind you, and it really made a difference. So at that point, I was open to looking at other possibilities for increased efficiencies, wide area network solutions and things like that. Called Brady up and asked him to come in. Very professional as far as the presentation and everything else. Charts, graphs, facts, cost analysis and whatnot that I could present to my executive committee for this capital expenditure and really an investment in my infrastructure. And it was because of that and the homework that was done that allowed me to set our infrastructure and allow us to communicate internally for our organization and become more effective and more efficient. So really the outcome was a total network solution, and that's what I was looking for. I wanted to deal with one person that knew the product, knew my business, asked me what I wanted, and understood my business and researched my business, instead of dealing with multiple vendors. And sure, we could have gone it cheaper, most likely, but we didn't want to take that because, again, time is money, and I can't have my doctors or my front office going back to the 70s and hand scheduling patients. We need real life on time scheduling and billing and insurance and collections and all that. So it was a one-stop shop where it saved me an enormous amount of time as a customer because I don't have to go out and interview. I have a trust factor with the rep, and all around it just added that value added. So don't be afraid to ask for a premium if you can give that premium and the value added to the customer. And I think you'll find that particularly there are a lot of smaller companies out there and things like that, but if you can bring in the knowledge base, be persistent, and always follow through, I think you're going to find great success. So with that, it was a success story with Pinnacle, and we continue to have a very positive relationship with BellSouth. And I want to thank you for being here. We're going to get Mr. Bravo on the stretcher, and I know you guys are anxious to get out of here. So thank you very much.